Once again, I feel I must remind Disney Plus that they are supposed to be delivering appointment television. And if nothing's going to happen really substantial in these episodes, they don't need to drop them at 3 in the morning or midnight. I know some of you are in different time zones, but I believe the biggest audience for this is in the United States to date. It's just, this seems like more something that drops, I don't know, like at around noonish, right? It still doesn't feel like appointment TV. And I think that as we are in the streaming wars, which are a lot more vicious than the situations that Boba Fett is involved in, you need to really do stuff to shake things up to keep people on your service. I thought this week's episode was very disappointing. I would actually say it's the worst episode to date. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have some highlights that we're going to go over. I know some of you are enjoying this show, even these slower episodes, but I think even you have to admit that from a business perspective, Boba Fett just isn't delivering. Like this morning on Twitter, people just gave up. They were like, I don't know what to tweet. Whatever, man. All right, so anyway, speaking of watching these things in the middle of the night, when I logged on early this morning to see to get this week's episode, and I saw the description, Boba Fett partners with Fennec Shand, I thought she was going to get a promotion in the current storyline because Lord Vader knows that Boba Fett could use some help running things. I'm doing a play on Lord knows. I'm not talking about Vader being involved in this at all. But anyway, instead we got a flashback of how they first met and started what became a beautiful friendship. But to be honest with you, I don't think their origin story was noteworthy enough to take up 2/3 of this week's episode. I don't think it was that interesting. And I think Fennec Shand getting enhancements at that mod parlor actually only complicated the Star Wars story overall. And I have 4 reasons as to why. A, if she's modified, how come we haven't seen her do anything extra cool since then? I mean, she seems to only have bionic abs, but I don't know, why isn't she like challenging people to sit-up contests? Or when she was doing the parkour, why wasn't she doing extra good jumps and hopping around or something like that? Like on the ship when she couldn't reach the button this episode, I was like, too bad she doesn't have go-go gadget arms, right? I mean, if you're going to turn her into Inspector Gadget, let's turn her into Inspector Gadget. B, if getting enhancements is this common and Boba Fett knew about it already, then what was so special about the gang last week? And why haven't we seen more humans and aliens with enhancements in Star Wars to date? Now C, during the watch-along, some of you counted that Vader and Luke have enhancements, and there's also that clone over in the Bad Batch now that I think about it. But if everyone's got them, doesn't that make Vader and Luke and others a little less special if they're that prevalent, right? Then also, wouldn't Vader's transformation be less horrific? Wouldn't he actually be super cool, doing what all the kids are doing, right? And on that note, D, if mods are at all an asset, modifications, why would only younger people be getting them? Wouldn't there be a line of mercenaries out the door at that parlor? Because, although, I don't know, it doesn't seem to have done diddly squat for Fennec or that gang, so I guess, it really is like a mechanical tattoo that, it's just art. But it saved her life, so it clearly does other things. I had more questions that I thought, if you're going to open this door, let's just fully walk through it. Thank you very much. Overall, I still think this show is moving too slowly. And while I admire that it's a sci-fi Western mashup, I feel that it leans on the Western genre a bit too heavily. And what I mean by that is that while younger viewers or viewers unfamiliar with Westerns might find it fresh, anyone, even remotely familiar with the Western genre, will find it cliche and slow, as it offers few surprises because so many of its story points are Western staples, and Boba Fett isn't layering anything really on top of that. All right, let's talk episode highlights. So one of you pointed out that the guy who runs the mod parlor is musician Thundercat, who I must admit is a pretty cool cat. I liked this guy. He didn't have a lot of lines, but I think they did a good job managing the cameo because the lines that he did have, he nailed. My 2 favorites being, well, you should have started with that. He paused just perfectly beforehand. And then at the end when Boba's like, aren't you going to close her up? He's like, and cover all that beautiful machinery up? And I'm like, I got a news flash for you. Fennec's not going to wear midriffs. She's covering it up, so she just apparently doesn't like your work. And also, another thing that occurred to me about Fennec and her enhancements, doesn't she ever need maintenance? We've been spending a lot of time with her. Doesn't she need red and blue fluid refills? Doesn't she need to recharge? Doesn't she need to oil up a little bit? I mean, I would think that would be like a key scene when she and Boba Fett are just hanging out. Maybe, she's gotta clean the pipes. All right, as for retrieving Boba Fett's ship, which we know means a lot to him because it was his father's ship, the best part of this sequence was by far and away the droids. Hey, salad droid, isn't that above your pay grade? Just keep chopping lettuce, which reminds me of Choppin' Broccoli, Dana Carvey's famous song from Saturday Night Live. But these were very well designed droids. I loved the old school feel to their movements, particularly that chopping droid. That was really cool. He moved again like a Harryhausen character. And that little dude, I loved it when he went through the fire, tucking in his ears. I thought that was so cute. And kudos to Tamura Morrison for threatening that puppet. Like, he really was like, grabbed it by its neck and he's like, all right, let's do this. And that little guy then turned himself off. He was so cute. And Boba Fett keeps him around as he's at the dinner later. And I wasn't sure what his purpose was as a droid until I went back to, do my notes for this breakdown. And I saw that when he comes in, he has a little net. So he's the Rat Catcher Droid. He's like a dog catcher, but for rats, which I think is adorable. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I think a rat could take that droid, quite frankly, but it's hilarious. I would like to see him at work. I think it's really funny. And I love that he uses non-lethal force on the rats. So good for him. He's a great little guy. I did love it when Boba Fett blasted that biker gang into oblivion. He finally killed someone, and the look on his face when he did it was boss. He was just so great. He was like mowing grass, but mowing biker gangs. But as for the Sarlacc Pit, it was really anticlimactic because we knew the armor wasn't in there. The Jawas took it. And some of you said, well, Boba Fett wouldn't know that because he was unconscious. He was stirring a little bit. And then when he came to in his long johns later on when the Tusken Raiders got him, wouldn't there have been bits of armor still on him if it had been dissolved in the Sarlacc Pit? I mean, use your brain, Boba. Although Boba, I think, is not the sharpest tool in the box. All right, so anyway, at least they fed that Sarlacc Pit a spicy burrito. They got him. Although animal lover Boba Fett, which I think is hilarious, he's like, you should next plant a garden and have cute animals. He really wants to retire, quite frankly, it seems. But anyway, he did fly right into that thing's mouth, so I don't know how cool it was that he killed it when technically Boba Fett started it. So he and Fennec Shand basically decide that working for other people sucks. Amen! But this whole discussion, I think, would have had more impact if Boba Fett was a more effective leader, because so far he's only proven that he can't do the boss's job. He's like, why should we work for other people when we can just do it ourselves? And I'm like, but you can't do it yourself, Boba. It's not one of your skills. But the biggest takeaway from that scene is his line that he says that he no longer is a loner and he knows he needs a tribe. It's better to have a tribe, which I guess is why he hired that biker gang. But at the very end of this episode, when he tells Fennec Shand that he's got a lot of money, and I'm like, where did that come from? But anyway, Fennec's like, great, let's use it to buy some muscle. And I'm like, Boba Fett, you can't inspire loyalty from anyone? Also, I think Fennec and also for sure Santi are going to be like, people are getting paid for this? But anyway, some of you said the Mando theme came in, so that's a clue that Mando will show up next week. Let's see. I mean, he and Mando are friends, so I would think that Mando would do it for free, quite frankly. But anyway, I think that there are going to be he's going to hire other bounty hunters, because there are rumors that other bounty hunters are going to show up on this show. So we'll see exactly who shows up next week. But I just hope that Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, I would love for them to hire a bunch of bounty hunters. I think a bounty hunter union would be a much cooler way to go than this stupid biker gang from last week. And he's already got Santi working for him, as I said. Yes, Boba Fett wakes up in the present and he's finally totally healed, which maybe means he's also done with flashbacks, right? He's like, oh, I'm all done with that. He's got his eyebrows back too, so hopefully that means he's all now that he's all healed, he can start joining fights more, because maybe before that's why he was holding back. And he decides to stroll into town. He's still walking everywhere, man. Everyone told him not to do that, but he decides to walk into town, make sure people see him out and about. And sure enough, he stops by the Cantina, where it turns out Santi is a mean drunk. I mean, I felt bad for those lizard dudes. They were just having a good night at the casino table. I bet one of them, they just looked a little bit like a bachelor party to me, and they just were cool guys. So now you would think the highlight of this scene would be seeing Santi fight. And this was a well-lit fight. It was a little bit better. He had electrified brass knuckles. He ripped that dude's arm off. That was not cool. Although many of you pointed out it was bloodless because it's Disney. But you know what? Blood is not cool on Disney+, but cleavage is no problem because in walked Jennifer Beals with a shocking amount of cleavage for Disney+. But who cares? She looked amazing in her costume change. I was hoping she'd have a new look, and she did not disappoint. She looked stunning, very Elsa. Her eye makeup was fantastic. She is so great. I don't understand why Boba Fett has not asked her out. I'm like, come on, man. What are you, Sam and Diane of this cantina? Let's go. I'd have much preferred to spend 30 minutes of this episode on their date night than the flashback that we got. I mean, wouldn't that be great? All right, finally, Boba Fett has his dinner from the trailer with the other mob bosses of Tatooine. One who looks like the Grinch, shaved, by the way. That was funny. And then he says, you got to promise me you're not going to side with the Pikes. You're going to stay out of this. And they were like, yeah, sure. I mean, who wouldn't say yes to that? How is Boba Fett going to know about it until it's too late? Like, it seems like an empty promise, especially since he doesn't ask them to sacrifice anything or put anything on the line. He just asks them for their word. Hey, criminals and underworld lords, you promise? And they're like, oh, yes, of course. We don't even cross our fingers behind our backs here because we're bad guys. And I still don't think Boba Fett understands that he's a bad guy. Like, he's like, my main goal is to clean up the streets, and I don't want your money. And I'm like, but when a mob boss cleans up the streets, it's for money. He gets protection money or gifts if he's a beloved mob boss. He doesn't demand it. People just want to give it to him. Take a look at The Godfather Part 2 and the difference between the two protectors of the town, of Little Italy. But anyway, for Boba Fett to refuse protection money or gifts is real confusing. It's like, what are we doing here? I think that would only hurt his position with those other mob bosses because they're like, you're not a good leader because you're not a criminal. All right, 3 episodes left. Let's see if Boba Fett can end stronger than it has started. I think so far the only really standout episode, and it was a beauty, was 2. And hopefully, as I said, we're all done with the flashbacks as we have caught up with the present. 4 episodes in, I still don't see what's so special about the Pikes. Like, why is it such a big deal to take them on? He already beat them on the train and made them walk home. They don't seem like that formidable a force to me, but we'll find out, hopefully next week. All right, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.